What book are you reading? Good book.
We were broadcasting.
There it is.
I scanned.
Yeah.
And we are streaming. And we are back to the switcher. And are they ready for video? You're live.
Okay, we're ready to go. Welcome to the Town of Hollis Planning Board meeting of January 28th, 2026. Call this meeting to order at 7:04 p.m. and start off with a roll call. To my right,
Tom Wachowski.
Heather Sullivan,
Brett Markey.
Danielle Bradbury.
and we do have one other member with us.
Recording in progress.
To take a telephone call, so we will move forward and then we'll embarrass him when he comes back. If you guys wouldn't mind standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Sure, everybody's on there.
Yeah. I thought I was the only one. I thought I was the only one. And we are going to tonight's our public hearing where we have the opportunity to present to the residents of the town our proposed changes to the zoning ordinance. As many of you might be aware, we have worked, now it will be 2 years, on zoning ordinance changes. I like to call them cleanup. Basically what we've done is we have gone through the ordinances and tried to ensure that we're using the same wording. So if we're referring to something as a road, it's not called a street someplace else in the ordinance. And we also did a lot of work on getting rid of what I call orphans. So they were definitions in the ordinance that are not referenced in any other section of the zoning ordinance. They, maybe because over the course of time, something changed and something got removed from the zoning ordinance, but it never got removed out of the definitions. So we posted and went forward with a public hearing tonight. I think that I will accept a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All right, our public hearing is open. Do we have any members of the public that would like to come up and let us know what they think about the changes, the proposed changes to the zoning ordinances? This would be at this point residents of the town of Hollis, and if you would like to come up, please state your name. You do have to come up to the lectern. Please state your name and let us know if you have any questions or comments to the draft that we've posted. Seeing none.
Danny Ruben, Hollis Select Board member
Are
and
you
resident.
speaking as a select board member or as a resident?
I was speaking as a Select Board member. Do you want to wait?
Okay, no, that's fine. You know what, let's just go on Zoom and see if anyone has any comments on Zoom, and then we'll do select board and planning board members. Do we have anyone on Zoom that would like to share their thoughts on the proposed draft to the zoning ordinances? I'll give it another second or two. And Dan, the floor is yours.
Okay. Do we want to discuss the ordinance, the planning board ordinance, or the zoning ordinance?
Whichever one you would like to
Okay.
discuss first.
I looked at the planning board ordinance first, and the only thing, I like how I had some questions, and then I read down the bottom, like, oh, there's all that stuff I had questions about. One of them maybe 4-9, where you like present the yearly budget. I think that's supposed to be going to the town manager first.
Okay,
You know,
that's
just
a
a
good call. I
easy
think
one.
I wasn't, when we started writing that,
And then looking at the zoning ordinance, I saw a couple places where it still talks about cluster subdivisions.
So that is something that we were going to talk to the select board about. We can pull, I'm not sure what the plan was for handling that. You know, we've had the vote. We know that the vote was that Hollis residents no longer want to allow cluster subdivisions, but no one has come to us and said, propose taking it out. I didn't know if there was some plan for that, or if the select board
Yeah,
had.
well, I just saw how like there was like a definition of it that went away, but then it was kind of in there later, so I
Yep.
didn't know, it was kind of.
Yep.
But the way I read it was like, it was a big thing, changing the definitions, and then the rest was mostly, like you said, the housekeeping, like the capital water bodies and stuff like that.
And I will say that the reason why we didn't pull anything out, the other reason why is because we are doing this in sections. So we didn't take anything out of the ordinance in any sections beyond, just sections 1 and 2 right now, and then that's all we got through. And then if those get approved, then we will make the changes throughout we will propose the changes throughout the ordinance. So that was the plan. Does anyone on this board have a different opinion about that?
If we don't take in sections, then it just turns into an absolute.
Do we want to strike all reference, so would it be all references to cluster subdivision and planned unit? I can't remember what they're called. There's, planned unit development.
The townspeople rejected cluster subdivision.
Correct.
So I would say we could strike those out of there.
So the only reason why I didn't do that is because if you look through, you said that changes are primarily Scrivener in nature. And so I didn't want to make any big changes to other sections of the zoning ordinances where now we can say we're staying focused on 1 and 2. But that is, I'm willing to do whatever this board wants to do.
Yeah, I think like there was concern that Dick was going to talk to you guys about last weekend about the expense to get the attorney's review, and he was thinking that it was the whole thing that was getting the review. And my suggestion was, well, what if we can just do a section and then try to plan for later on the rest of it? And it seems like that was kind of what you guys were, so we all got to kind of get on the same.
There's a couple of things. Yeah, I think that makes sense from a budget perspective. Absolutely. And we are going to talk a little bit about the potential for us to get a grant we will be able to incorporate some additional changes or additional updates.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's,
I've got a question.
Yeah.
That's all right. For Dan, you said one thing that I don't want it to slide by. You said for us all to get on the same page.
Right.
What's the best way to accomplish that?
So I was hoping we were going to have some more of us in here tonight, but I think we might have to do one of those workshop like we did back in October. We all sat down together and, so we can all just kind of sit at the same table. And if we have like, I don't know what the estimate was, but he was saying it was like weeks of review time for the lawyer.
Yeah, we heard a number that was 25,000 last time. It was an estimate, but like you said, it's not the whole thing. It's only 2 sections.
Yeah.
and we've already had those 2 sections reviewed by SMPDC last year. And I shared the comments from SMPDC in an email to Select Board and Planning Board.
Okay.
So I think the thing that's left is for us to try and get together with you fine folks and get everybody on the same page.
Yeah, no, I went through the whole thing, 80 whatever pages of it. I scribbled down subnotes, but like you said, I was expecting to see the whole thing, according to what Dick was saying, from what the lawyer looked at from the hour or whatever he looked at, saying it's the whole thing, but I don't know what. Oh, here he is. But Couple more things from my kind of notes I scribbled down after looking through it. The definition for a butter, I put the thing away, but you look at it and it changes over to, you used to call it like a parcel or something, now it's calling a premises, and premises was one of the things that got swiped out of there. I'm wondering if that might, a butter, okay, so you're doing a subdivision, you're supposed to notify all the abutters. But if we call it just the premises, what if someone says, okay, well, they're only developing this part, we only have to notify these abutters because they're at the premise. I'm wondering if that should just get changed to lot.
It does say it is lot. It is the owner of a lot contiguous to the perimeter of the premises being developed. And premises is still in here. Premises, I believe, should still be in here because I used it a lot. Premises, that should not have been struck. So the distinction is premises is one or more lots, which are in the same ownership and are contiguous or separated only by a road, a water body. I'll make sure that stays in.
Okay.
A road, a water body, including all buildings and improvements. So premise, as opposed to lot, which is, lot, a parcel of land as described on a deed, plot, or similar legal document. So I thought premises better captured if it was across multiple parcels, whereas lot only captures one parcel.
Okay. No, as long as if that definition of what you said alleviates my concern with
you
that.
were right, it is struck in here, but that was we did not plan to do that, so thank you for pointing that out. I will make sure that it goes back in the follow-up draft that we pass around and we post.
That's why we have all these meetings.
That's why you need multiple people reviewing, absolutely.
Yep. Will the land use table be updated to where is it, ? And then I saw your email today.
Yep, that was my error in not sharing it with everyone. That was part of what we did last year as part of this process. And we wanted to make sure that the defined uses were all defined so anything that's on the chart is a defined use in section 2.
Yep.
And we did, there were a couple of situations where we have had folks come in front of the planning board for different types of uses, one of them being a wedding venue, and we didn't have equivalent use in the ordinance, so we put in function hall. So that way, we could include that. And then as a board, we discussed what areas, what zones that would be appropriate in, and you saw today's email.
Yep.
I always forget
I
that.
just saw I didn't open anything up. I just literally come in here and I'm like, oh, I better check my email. And
Yeah, so we did the same updates, or the equivalent updates to make we also divided the use table into residential and commercial, just so for ease of people referencing the actual use table. And we also did one, didn't we change one of the, we took out there were a couple of zones that they weren't really zones, but they were identified as zones in the use table. We took those out because they weren't actually a zone. The zones are defined, and in section, I think 5 of our ordinance, we wanted to make sure that there wasn't anything extra in there, because that use table gets pretty unwieldy after a while.
yeah, so is that like I always thought it was like a page in there, or is it like a separate thing? It just didn't make,
I think it's
its own
part
document?
But it is something that I think historically it's always been posted on the website separately as like a quick reference for people.
Yeah, because I was like, well, where's the old one? And I'm like, okay, how come it's not in the old zoning ordinance? And I found it and it was like update, like the last update was 14. Does that make sense? Like we haven't.
I would say that it is a separate document because if the use table, so say the use table and the ordinance itself don't appear to be consistent, it would be the ordinance, not the use table, that would govern. I think that's, and it's just always been that way. I don't have a better explanation for why it is. I think that we reference it, it is a defined term.
Yeah, it's like reference. I'm wondering, like, do we want to make it the last 4 pages or whatever of it? So we just say we're updating the zoning ordinance, so we don't have to say we're doing the zoning ordinance and the use table. look for this one here, hopefully this one's up, because I've seen it in, most towns have it pasted right in
It used
the
to be
meat.
part of the zoning ordinance.
Okay. How do we feel about just adding it, so that'll be one of the proposals, or that'll be part of the proposal, is that we will just tack this on as is it an appendix, or is it I'm just not sure.
I don't know how, I think it might be better for people to find it if it's just because if you're looking for what you're gonna do, you're gonna look for that use table too, and so if it's attached right there, it's a lot easier for people to
I know if
find.
I was thinking about doing something, the first thing I would do is go to the use table and say, is this allowed? Is the zone that I'm in, is it allowed? And then I would look and see what are the additional requirements.
An appendix would be
Okay. So we'll
a
add
good
that.
way to put it, then it's separate.
Yep. Yeah, and I think we can have it as, it can be physically, one of the challenges that we have where we have online is, some people might want to go and find the use table all by itself. And so if we put 2 copies up, if we put one attached or made part of the zoning ordinance, and then another one just separate by itself online.
Right, and then you gotta keep track of 2 of them, make sure they're
That's
both.
what we found that's one of the reasons why we're doing this work, is to kind of align everything. So some of the definitions, if they are defined in, say, shoreline zoning, they don't need to be defined in this section of the zoning ordinance. That's an example of where we've gotten situations where it says one thing in one ordinance and says something different in another one. Because it just never got updated properly. That's usually the reason, as you are probably pretty well aware.
This low.
No, I didn't mean to walk in here and to change the whole way the town works, but I was just kind of wondering why it wasn't in there, and I didn't know if there was any good reason
You
or
guys
not.
talked at all about, it's my understanding that we, last year, maybe, there was a vendor that was supposed to, basically E-code our zoning
Oh, it's
ordinances.
awful.
So if you go online,
Here we go.
many municipalities out there have their ordinances on what's called E-code, and it's, they're linked together. There's, if it's referencing a section in the zoning ordinance, if it's referencing another section, there'll be an underlined hyperlink for it. I thought that there was effort to do that. I'm not sure where that landed, or.
Yeah, I want to say they at least got, it used to just be like a scanned page,
Yeah, you
but now
couldn't
you can
even-
at least search for words.
You couldn't even search for words, yes. No, Ashley, I think, took care of that. Oh, no, maybe it was our.
Yeah, even now, if you're,
So this gives
you
me a
type in
level, and I think
Hollis
that's
zoning
all.
ordinance
I don't know if it's just
in
the PA or
Google,
something, but I
the
always
first
go
thing
by
that
the mouse
populates
and
is
move
the old zoning ordinance that
Right.
no longer stands.
Usually
So I think there's a multitude of, it's
Hit the
exactly what
yellow
you said,
too
there's a
much,
lot
I
of
mean, you can
aspects
go
to
off
that
from there, I
that need to
guess,
be
but no.
updated.
I did
I was
it
just
now.
curious. I know that, I believe.
Yeah, no, I
Select
think, I
Board-
thought we were doing something too. I guess we gotta ask him about it.
Is it called code?
I'm not sure. I just.
Yeah, codify, that sounds right.
So the one thing I was thinking
But no, I know what you're talking about, and it's like, the towns that have that, there's no way of having the outdated one there because
someone comes in on
it doesn't have any old PDFs to go pull up at the website,
And it makes it very easy when you're doing research to, if it references another section, I mean, it's like state statute. If there's a reference to another section, there's a hyperlink to that section, so you can immediately go and say, oh, this applies, or it doesn't.
Right.
So, yeah, we would love to get some intel on where that's
Not
at,
that I should either.
and also where we're at with GIS,
This is a switcher,
with
so
having our
it's
tax
on the
maps,
podium right now, but I want to
searchable
switch to
or
their.
available. You know what I'm talking.
Yep.
You obviously know. Because I think that was something that also I believe.
Yeah, we
that-
paid for it.
Yeah, so where are those items?
Yep, I think, that they're waiting to do the reevaluation and have it all come out at once. Because, last I heard, all the tax map lot numbers and maps are all getting redone. So,
It's good, it'll
think
make
it's
it
kinda
more
got to
transparent
do
and
like that.
easier for our residents to search things and, do stuff like that. So I just want us to be, I don't want us to undervalue things like that, because it does make it a lot easier for residents to self-serve, or people like me who want to self-serve and, look things up regularly. So, awesome. Did you have additional comments, Dan?
that's all I got written down.
Awesome, thank you. We are continuing to, we have another public hearing in 2 weeks. Mary reached out today to let us know that she's gonna have some comments for us. She just didn't have them ready yet. So we welcome additional, if you're noodling around in there and you see something, please mention it. Let's get it, let's get things on the table, and so we don't have to do this again for like 20 years.
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Do we have anybody else?
What about the Zoom call?
Terrific.
Mike Harnois, Pleasant Hill Road. I had a couple questions about some of the definitions, and one of them I'll start with was about solar farm definitions. It was a term, it said something to the effect of more than a large number.
I'm sorry, what was that?
The term was more than a large number.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yep.
And I'm wondering if that's too vague.
Yes, it is too big.
I don't know what the correct thing is, but
Can someone do a quick?
Well, I don't know, I mean, it
How
does
is it
say,
defined by the state?
the specific part is it says 0.5 megawatts.
And it also says the commercial use of, so it can say more than a monkey number. And at the end of the day, it'll just look silly, and it boils down to produce 0.5 megawatts or more of electricity.
Maybe we should take that reference to more than a large number.
We
and
could
just
say multiple.
Yeah, multiple solar panels not to exceed 0.5 megawatts or whatever.
Well, no, it can exceed. It says to produce 0.5 megawatts or more. So I guess if there is a desire to limit the number of solar panels, we haven't heard anyone come forward and mention that
Depending on who's standing right
that is
there.
something that is
They're reading
necessary
it
or
which
that they
camera.
want. We did do a
See, this
solar
one
panel,
blocks
a solar
tall.
farm, 2025,
This one I
right?
get right.
And we didn't have anyone come out and speak about the size of it. And I think it was sized just based on the available parcel or what the contracting company wanted as far as size was concerned.
Did you have a definition? 'Cause that's usually how the select board works, right? We'll just have you write the definition and bring it to us.
I don't have the answer to this. It's more of just a general question.
That's 100%. You nailed it. That's a good catch.
Thanks.
Okay, Tom says.
I have a couple other potential good catches. I don't think they're
Another 7.
any way, shape, or form life-changing or, but the other one that I wanted to kind of bring to your, are you good with that one? Okay, okay.
Absolutely.
The other one had to do with the ADU size limits. And this is, maybe might be an education for myself. The definition caps ADUs at 900 square feet. Which is, I believe, below what some other main towns allow. Is that correct?
Every town gets to decide what size ADUs they'll allow. We have not yet been limited by the state in terms of how big or small an ADU is allowed. This board had some pretty robust discussions and negotiations about size.
Okay, that's great. I didn't, could you, I don't have to summarize it, but like, how did you come to 950, if you could summarize it?
So how do we come to 900?
Sorry, yeah, was it 900? Yeah, 900 square feet, sorry.
I think we all thought that was reasonable. I don't think there was a
Okay.
argument. It was, from what I remember, because it was a long time ago now, it was a big enough room to be able to live while not being a whole another house.
Okay.
Which has, oddly enough, been trumped by the state anyway, and you can build a second or 27, a third house on the property, so.
So it wasn't a calculation, you didn't do like some sort of like by acre percentage
It
of
was
that?
much, I think it was smaller. It was smaller,
Before that, it was either 450 or 500, I forget exactly.
and we felt that that was too small. And that, and then I think, people were throwing out different, it was 2,500 and then I think we just kind of all landed on 900. We looked at, I think we did look at like what is actually part of that calculation is a set of stairs. If you're in a garage, is the set of stairs going to the up part? Is that part of it?
Did the enclosed porch count towards that 900 square feet, and then stuff like that? So it was, like I said, it was a very, I think we spent almost an entire meeting just talking about trying to.
And really, it was a, you know, as many things come to, it was a one person or two people had very specific, do not want it to be larger than this. And then somebody else said, well, I think it should stay really small, and we just kind of figured out.
You split the difference.
Yeah, really, yep. And without public input, that's how, I mean, I think you guys probably experience this sometimes too. That's sometimes how a decision has to be made. And so that's kind of how we do it without the residents coming and telling us what they want. You know, we kind of, you know, it's a reasonableness test, I think, or whoever talks the loudest at the meeting.
Okay. I don't have a, you know, firm stance on this. I do, sometimes I think about my first house, and it was an 1,100 square foot house in Texas, and that felt reasonable. It's certainly, it was a 3-bedroom technically. So 900 square feet doesn't seem out of the realm, but I'm just wondering if there's some reason to add that extra 300 square foot that some other towns, it seems like a lot of other towns have kind of adopted the 1,200 square foot. So I don't know, just think about that one maybe. If now that you're coming around to it, it's been a while, maybe.
I do think we have to look at ADUs again, based on the legislative changes that came through last year, or last session, so that when we are doing that work, we can bring this up in that conversation as well.
Okay, cool.
So you want to go bigger?
Huh?
You want to go bigger than the 9?
I think he's just saying what he saw with other
I
towns.
don't know. We got space around here.
Yeah, we don't want to be an outlier, you know, but also, there's a reason why, you know, home rule exists. And that's so that the town of Hollis can decide something different than the town of Waterboro, or any other town.
Yeah.
When we had this conversation, was it a year?
It was over a year
It was
ago,
over a year ago.
because we voted on LD.
I vaguely remember
2003.
having to fight, or not fight, but like really argue my case for 900.
Yep. But we had a different looking board at that time.
And then the people arguing against it were saying that it's not meant for, to house a family. It's meant to be an in-law apartment. It should be an in-law apartment, not an ADU.
I don't
I
think
remember
that's,
this.
Yeah. It went along with the arguments around residency.
Yeah, and that's what the other was. So residency for, the owner has to either occupy the ADU or the main dwelling when you can't rent both of them out. So the state obviously stepped in and said, no more of that.
yeah.
That was under the same argument. The people that wanted the 500 square foot or 450 square foot were the same ones that said, you know, you shouldn't be able to rent both of them out.
I find it interesting because, the state is obviously very clearly saying housing stock is important. And it's so important that they're changing laws in order to take away some of our ability to have home rule and decide for ourselves. And so given that, and lack of input, I would tend to say, okay, well, the state wants more housing stock, so we should be looking to expand, even at an even greater level. And that's when you get to the situation where it really, the person that was the most resistant to ADUs going outside of what they were intended to be in 1982 is no longer on the board. So that argument now is not being represented the same way as it has been. So that's just the nature of what how the board's structured at any given time.
Okay. It was a while ago. Okay, so just something, but like you said, it could be future stuff.
Yeah, we are gonna have to address that as part of those LD. I don't even remember which one it is, but.
It's not 2003 anymore, it's 18.
It's 1879 is one of them, I think 14 something.
2003 was what brought this around. LD 2003 brought this. That's right. All right.
And so we had LD 2003, which required us to allow ADUs, any on any residential property, that we could no longer restrict ADUs. And then now they've even gone further and they've said now, I think it's ADUs on, they're on two-family units can also have ADUs. And so the state did one thing one year and then have continued to expand it because ADUs are a less expensive method of housing our children that can't afford to buy houses now, or our elders who want to stay in a home but they need to be closer to their children.
Okay.
Or are getting taxed out of their houses.
Or getting taxed out of their houses.
That's
Yeah.
right.
One more for you. It's about future-proofing this definition and kind of like these definitions and providing a vehicle to quickly change. So I've noticed a bunch of definitions that reference as amended for state statutes. That's proactive. But with Maine's evolving housing laws, what process could we put in place to make quick updates? It could be overly restrictive, definitions like the ADU caps, for example, and hinder affordability and goals and invite challenges potentially down the road.
So without a charter, we have to follow state law in terms of how we make changes to our ordinances, and that means that every change to an ordinance needs to go in front of the public for a vote, and we do that generally once a year, unless there's a reason, unless the select board chooses to have a special election. So that's my understanding is that, unless we had a charter where it was written in there that we could make changes differently, I mean, that would be something that may be challenging to get the residents to agree to. I like the checks and balances that the residents having the opportunity to yay or nay anything that we want to change. I think that's a good checks and balance, and I would be hesitant to do away with that for the benefit of ease of, because that's it. Your updates are only as good as the people that are proposing them.
Yeah. I maintain that if better education, I wasn't part of the board back then, but if better education had been given to the residents about what a charter is, because it's complicated stuff. It really is not like, oh yeah, a charter, sure, that's what this is. If we had better education in place, I don't think that would have, it didn't fail by much. I think it failed by maybe a couple hundred votes or something like that, but
And I think the fail had a lot more to do with the spend, how much it was going to cost us to.
Because it wasn't the charter, we weren't voting for the charter, we were voting for the commission to be,
And that is state law. The state law does require us to do that vote that way.
Yeah.
That's written right into state law.
Okay, and the only final thing I just want to say is something Dan was talking about too, about the lawyer piece in the cost. I think the reason they said it was going to cost $20,000 was because when you look at the red line version of this, every single page has a change, right?
Yep.
There's 5,269 changes on this red line.
Very thorough.
So basically, I think the lawyer looked at that and said, oh, well, that's going to take me all the time. That said, potentially in our workshop, if we can get that set up, maybe what we could do is come up with a kind of a greatest hits version of this that we want him to review, just the ones that we want to make sure we're like 100% on. Maybe the ones that we've already had reviewed, or maybe ones that have been, has anything substantial changed between the review? Okay. So most of these red lines are from before. Okay. The fact that the lawyer found something on page 1, though, like it makes me like there's something else.
I agree that was a good catch, and I reversed it. So the version that
I'm not saying you didn't take action, and you didn't take action right away, and that wasn't great. But I'm just saying, like, if that is on page 1, maybe is there any other, not questionable is not the word, but is there any other section? This is more of a question, and you don't have to answer it right now. Are there other sections of this that we might want the lawyer to maybe spend 10 minutes, 15 minutes, maybe ask him to say 3 hours? What was that?
Try to get a lawyer to do 15 minutes of work only.
Yeah,
But yes, so I would argue that there are parts of our zoning ordinance right now that we can point to because we are in them so much and say this is a lawsuit waiting to happen, Or the way that it is written in here is a process that doesn't make sense. Very similar to the planning, to the ordinance that said that we had to have public hearings after the time that we put the ordinance changes proposal in front of you guys. Doesn't do us any good to have a public hearing that we're trying to solicit feedback from the public after the deadline for us to provide you with our proposed draft. So that's why we went, that's why that's the one that we changed as part of the special election. So that's why we proposed that as part of the special election, so that now we can have a public hearing now in January and February and give us plenty of time to get our proposals to you for you guys to vote on, whether or not you're going to include them on the warrant, because that's what you're charged with.
Yeah, I totally understand all that. So what I was thinking was like some of the ones that have, I'm looking at like some of the red lines, like auto service facility and agriculture use, and some of these ones with substantial amounts of changes in words. I'm wondering if those are the ones that we, focus in on,
Why don't we just have them, I mean, so we have had SMPDC review the definitions. So we have gotten, I shared the email from them where they had some comments, and we addressed all their comments. Mary brought to us last year 3/4 of the changes. So the majority, so the changes that you see outside of sections 1 and 2 are merely just a reflection of the changes in sections 1 and 2. So if we didn't capitalize definitions, if it's not capitalized, it's not a defined term. So you can't reference back to the defined term. So a lot of what you see in further sections are just capitalization updates. Or the fact that we use the term, that some people writing for this board at a time would use the term lot, and someone else would use the term premises. We tried to clean that up so that it was consistent across the entire ordinance.
And I can tell.
Section 3 further,
Yep.
we haven't made any changes to, but the exception of, we did add some uses that we felt needed to have some kind of performance standards in them. Brewery, for example, we felt that there needed to be some kind of a performance standard in there. We did add new performance standards for that new use, because we didn't want to leave it, what happens if this board breaks up and we don't ever get to performance standards section? Then we have a use that doesn't have any requirements associated with it, and there are certain uses that absolutely need to have certain parameters around them.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I can tell, I mean, the red line tells me what obviously you changed, and I see exactly what you're saying. You've capitalized a couple of
before
things.
we
Hold on one
started doing
second,
this-
one
yeah,
second.
sorry.
Let me just say one thing. So professional, like, I'm going to like the professional offices exclude retail stores, banks, and industry uses that you added some words there, like premises and or and things like that. I'm not saying that we have the lawyer look at things that have capitalization changes. That's crazy talk. I'm talking about like the things where there's changes to, especially the business stuff. Because I want to make sure that I mean, Tom, I think you're on the same page too. We want to, and if everyone's here, we want to attract businesses. We don't want to have some little caveat in our code or in our ordinance that prevents whatever might be in here. I'm not saying that any mistakes were made. I'm not saying because there was a mistake on page 1 that there is more mistakes. I'm not saying that at all. But if we could utilize the lawyer a little bit, even though we've already had it reviewed, maybe just a little bit.
Feel free. I mean, that you guys have the authority. I don't get to decide whether or not the lawyer looks at these. You guys get to decide.
I think he's asking for our opinion on which sections would.
Section 2, definitions. Do you want us to go, item by item? I mean, I would say, it's very hard for an attorney to pick and choose, or to be told that, oh, don't look at this, but look at that. Because oftentimes things, if we don't say, look at the term use, and make sure that that term itself meets standards, then how is the attorney gonna look at any of the uses and confirm that they meet expectations?
Well, we could ask the attorney what he wants, like the best way to do this. We'll just present it to him and say, hey, this is what we're thinking. We really want these sections to be reviewed. Is this something, how can you do that? So we don't have to like do conjecture of like, how is he gonna do it? We could just say, ask him that question. And Dick, technically, that would be Dick's job to ask that question, not us.
I think, section 2, that to me, then I would argue that section 1 is also vitally important, because section 1 is all around building requirements. And, the kind of like the over non-conformance. And I will say, for the record, that I don't like the order. I think definitions should always come first, not second. But I felt that was a little bit, it was unnecessary and it would add to the confusion. But if we had it set up as an E-code, then you could then it wouldn't matter where they fall. But I would, so I would say, there are some pretty important things that in section 1 that have changed. Well, actually, now that I think about it, I guess there are a lot of changes, but there isn't anything that has, other than the section around public hearings, which we've already addressed now. We did that at the special vote. There were a few smaller updates, or, we added, I think industrial and commercial weren't defined terms before, those types of uses. Now they are, so we added them in there. And the biggest thing we did was we took out this horrifying section that was a reference to additional town ordinances, but was never complete and never kept up to date.
Okay.
So it wasn't a list of, so instead of referencing other town ordinances, we just said, let's not reference other town ordinances in our ordinance, a list of them, so then we don't have to keep it up in the town ordinances. Martha does a great job of keeping town ordinances, the accurate ones, up.
Okay.
But this is not helpful, because this makes it seem as though we only have these additional ordinances, and that isn't the case.
All right. Yeah, I'm not trying to do like a pop quiz here, but like, for example, like non-conforming structures, that section right there. September 22nd at 2:23 p.m. is when you changed that. Is that September 22nd of 2024 or 2025?
Probably 2024, because
Okay,
we
so
went
that
in
was
order.
after the review of, so that was before the review. Okay.
Yeah. But I can't, don't quote me on that, and it's one of the things I think that is interesting about all this is, before I got involved, we didn't even do red line changes. So we didn't even redline the changes in, and that became an issue, because we had assistance from an outside contractor who made changes based on recommendations by others, but didn't tell us. So we caught, for example, stuff like that. That doesn't happen. So I tend to over redline, because I will over redline the double space after a period that comes out. That's just that I do a job, I do it to the best of my ability, and that's part of it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a tremendous amount of work, and I'm sure the majority, if not all of it, is fantastically accurate, and we just want to just make 100% sure before, because we know what's going to happen in June when our voters are voting on this. It's going to pass, it's going to go in, voters are going to say, yeah, I trust my town officials, I trust my planning board to suggest correct things, so we want to make sure it's right.
Absolutely.
And so I love the workshop idea. I think we should get that done, obviously, as soon as humanly possible.
So would it make sense to also invite the attorney to that workshop?
I don't know if that's feasible or not. I'm not sure. From a timing standpoint, maybe. Let me talk to Dick about that. But thank you for all the time. I think I've been up here for like a half hour. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
I think that, so for the next public hearing, I think we are going to go with a non-red line version of this, so that we're looking at it and reading it as what the voters will actually, what will ultimately be in place. And that will allow us to identify any gaps or, that's where I get nervous. Or when we find things like the premises. Now, I probably would have caught that, because when I clean red lines, I actually do it red line by red line. I don't do the whole document by itself. And I've actually been working on that. And I found a lot of things like the double period, the double space after the period, which just drives me nuts. So, So I think, does that make sense to everyone, that we
Yeah.
would look at the clean version of it the next time? Awesome. And, you know, it's kind of, it's confusing, so we've heard that the changes look a lot more robust. The actual meat of the changes look a lot more robust than they actually are, because anything outside of section 1 and 2, it's just changing to capitalized terms, or do you think we can limit our documentation, the clean version, to just sections 1 and 2, or do we want to print out copies of the entire thing?
I just do 1 and 2. I thought he's gonna be asking.
What is the public gonna be voting on?
They're gonna be voting on all the changes, so it's gonna be the zoning ordinance, and what we would post. So one of the things that we did a couple of elections ago that I think makes sense in this case is, in addition to having the red line changes, so the ones that shows the changes, the clean version, and we also did a memo on top of it that said, here's the basics of the changes. Which was outside of, it didn't become part of the zoning ordinance, that was for the voters, and it was really designed just to help voters understand what it was that.
The cliff notes.
Yeah, the cliff notes of it, what we intended to do. And so we would talk about things like getting rid of the orphaned terms. We would talk about new potential uses. We added some uses so that business opportunities, we wouldn't be restricting businesses in ways that we knew we had to restrict before, because there wasn't a use for it. I think those would be the types of things that we would do in that, and I would say that we would keep it to 1 page or less, because people don't want to read, most people don't want to read more than a paragraph. So. And I can share some of the old ones that we did on that, but as we got closer to the election, I would say that would be something that we should do as a board. I suppose we could do it when we have our final version. Then I would say we would, do the Cliff Notes version of it.
Well, I would say where you talked about capitals
Yep.
on the definitions, that's like a required thing. So maybe we don't need to clutter the thing up with those kind of changes,
There's different theories of it, right? There will be some people that will read and look at every single change.
Oh, yeah, and check the commas and periods and everything else.
Absolutely. Yeah, and then provide us with some really good feedback. I wish people like that would actually join the board. Then there's folks that will say, I trust our town officials, and this is what they told us the changes were, and I'm gonna make my decision based on that. We see limited public input, despite the fact that we've had these public hearings scheduled for months. I feel like we planned these out quite some time ago and have continually mentioned them, and we still end up with limited public comment. Now, that being said, we do have another public hearing at the end of February on these ordinance changes. And residents can always send us an email, send us a snail mail letter if you just want to send a letter, and bring it to the town, print it out and write your comments on it and bring it to the town. And they'll get a copy. Ashley will get a copy to us. We will take any and all resident comments. I think that's something that we've always consistently felt is essential in the work that we're doing. So, did anyone have any comments to the planning board ordinance? We shouldn't, because we've gone through it ad nauseum. But that one is also going to be up for, the changes are going to be up for, and that's changing the size of the board. Did we have anyone on the Zoom? It looks like we got a couple new people on the Zoom.
Bennett, Christie.
I don't see the. So, hearing no additional public comments, I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing portion of the planning board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
How do you vote?
Yes.
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 All right, let's move on to our regular course of business. Where's my little agenda here? Not my little agenda. So next, thank you. Next item is correspondence. We received our there seems to be a regular letter from Saco River Corridor Commission, who has some permits that they are looking at. There are 4 on this letter. They only provided us with one application. This was so 2 of these are 3 of these are after the fact. So these changes have already been made, and then the resident was told that they had to go through Saco River Corridor Commission approval. And then there's one new item, and that is a permit to install a septic tank in a well closer than 347 feet to the Saco River. I don't see anything on, anything printed out. Maybe there was, or maybe I don't have, oh, yeah, no, we do, actually, right. Yeah, I'm sorry, it's just, that was me, yeah. Does anyone have any comments or thoughts on that, or does anyone feel the need for us to look into this any further, other than relying on Saco River Corridor Commission and knowing that these may come in front of us as well?
Looks good to me.
All righty, so that's one. Wanted to remind everyone, we've referenced it a couple of times. We have housing legislation, and there's Maine Office of Community Action has a grant program. I connected with the select board to find out, there are grants available to help planning boards and other elected officials and other municipal officials do the work of updating ordinances to meet state law. So that's an opportunity for up to a $15,000 grant, and that is creating, the eligible items are contractors or others that would assist with creating and amending local ordinances that comply with the new legislative changes. We were provided with some information about the grant funding. Mary is taking the lead in preparing the grant application. One thing she did ask us to think about, and I think we can, we should think about it fast because the application deadline is March 4th. So we have a couple more meetings where we can talk over what would we, if, she said, look at it like a $5,000, what would you do with 5,000? What would you do with 10? And what would you do with 15? The informational webinar that was supposed to be on Monday got moved to next week. I'm going to be on it. Mary's going to be on it, and Mocha, I'm not sure what they're called, will tell us what types of things we can use the funding for. But it will primarily be to pay for an attorney to review proposed changes, or to write them for us, and then then we have the easy work of just saying we agree or we don't. I would argue that there's a chance that our comprehensive plan, that some of this stuff could have an impact on the comprehensive plan. And I believe, since the comprehensive plan is part of the zoning ordinance, that there may be some assistance to the comprehensive plan committee to update the comp plan with respect to these items. I'm not 100% sure, so I haven't sat on the webinar yet.
We're starting meeting again next week.
Excellent.
2, 3, 4, and 5, sometime next week.
Awesome. I do know that because I've gone on a couple of different information sessions on this topic, and one of the things that I heard that I found interesting was, if there is, so you put in for a budgeted amount, we kind of have to say how we would use the money, but if there is money left over after we've gotten the services that we need for these, we can use those funds to get the same type of service to pay for our attorney fees. So there is a potential. I certainly don't want to say that we want to pinch pennies on the purpose of the grant, but that the agency, the state agency that's putting out the grants has said that is a reasonable use after you've gotten the updates. So I think that is something that we may have the ability to have a little bit more, or certainly funds that don't come out of, taxpayer pockets in order to update things. So I think that's something, important for us to remember, and I will fill you guys in on the webinar at our next meeting. And like I said, Mary asked us to kind of think about, one of the things that I haven't had the opportunity to get yet, or I've asked for it, but I haven't gotten it yet, is I asked for a copy of the planning board spend over the last couple of years, because I honestly have no idea what we've spent in the past. And I have no idea what things like SMPDC review of our definitions actually cost us. It's kind of hard to put together a budget if I'm not clear on what something similar has cost us. So I'm looking forward to getting that information from our town treasurer.
Well, some of that grant money too could be used with what Southern Maine Planning does for us.
Absolutely, I think Southern Maine Planning is relying on the fact that, that's why they're pushing these grants so much, because that's work for them. And I don't know the difference, or I don't know when Southern Maine Planning is the right resource and when our attorney is the right resource. I believe that our town attorney does everything from employment law to ordinance work. Southern Maine Planning just does land use and ordinance work. So in my unsophisticated mind, I would say, even though they aren't an attorney, or there may be attorneys on staff, I don't know, they are probably much more versed in how towns actually work, or how zoning ordinances are actually read, and the impact of language, where an attorney is looking at it oftentimes just strictly from a litigation and risk perspective, which that's important, but it's not the only perspective to look at things. So I tend to go towards the non-attorney resource that specialize in something. That's just me, though. I don't have the town wants to use the town attorney. I've never seen the bio of the town attorney, so I don't know what he specializes in. Seems to have to do a lot of different things. So I just haven't paid attention to it. So we'll talk about that at our next meeting. Ashley, if you can just put that on for an update on that. Next item is, so as you guys may or may not know, the planning board has the opportunity to provide an update to the residents in our town annual report. Now, the annual report deadline for our content is 2/27/26. And if you look at old town annual reports, the planning board content is pretty generic every year. We have not done things like talked about the number of houses, talked about growth. Or, we've never done, it's never really included like, we approved X subdivisions during from this period to that period. To me, that the report that we put in is, other than a section that says, here are the planning and ordinance things that we did, like reviewed the definition section, and here's what our plan is for the future. Or we looked at the cannabis business ordinance and made recommendations on that. Other than that, there really isn't a lot of what I would call meat to what the planning board has historically reported. We're not telling them, Butch only showed up for 66% of the meetings last year. We're not, that's not, or we did 17 site walks, or we did 0 site walks.
You can do a dashboard that illustrates.
So the challenge with the dashboard is that we need to get that information out of code from the code enforcement office.
Yeah.
One of the things that I did was I reached out to Dwayne and said, we would like a report. We talked about it at our last meeting. We would like to know how many building permits were issued. Or it's not even so much to me how many building permits were issued, but how many certificates of occupancy were issued. Because to me, you can issue 1 million building permits. It's what gets built and completed is to me what matters, because if it's not completed, then we don't have a new family moving in, or we don't have a new business opening. So pulling a permit and then letting it run is not, I know it happens. I think, it maybe probably happens more often than I'm aware of. But I was just thinking that the COE, that's really what matters to us. And so I asked for that. I asked for if they could let us know how many, when a COE is complete, because Dwayne does a final, you have to issue a certificate of occupancy for everything. Was that in the subdivision? Because I think that matters to us, because we do all, we review all subdivisions. So I think it would matter to us, how these subdivisions that we approved 5 years ago, how many houses are actually built 5 years later. I think that could be something that was helpful for us when it comes to thinking about things like growth ordinances. So I haven't received any data, so I'm hoping that, we can get that moving, and it would just be, it'd just be a regular report that, I would hope that there's some kind of an Excel chart or database or something that every project goes into.
Creating it something for us, just send us along what you got.
Yeah, just a dashboard.
Yeah.
And then we would be able to include that in our annual report. And we would be able to feel confident about the numbers. Yeah, because that's another thing that I struggle with is I'm one that likes to affirm that the accuracy of things. And in situations, this happens to me in my regular work day, if I go to my company, if I say, pull me a list of all the minority-owned businesses that we contract with, and then I go and look up 10 of them out of a list of 40, and out of those 10, 8 of them, they don't actually show up as minority-owned business, then I'm concerned about the entire body of data. And so I would say that there would be something kind of similar here, is that we just want to make sure that what we're asking for is information that we all understand what it is that we're looking for, certificate of occupancy versus a building permit. I don't think we need to know how many electrical permits were issued in a given month. But I thought that might be something that, we talked about it, and it hasn't moved forward very quickly. I feel like I sometimes just need to give like one whole week a month to this, and then we could move things along a little bit, but I don't have that luxury. So stay tuned for that piece of it. So town report submission, we're gonna keep that on the agenda. I will, we were provided with a copy of last year's. I think I might pull a couple of years prior and share them with everyone, and then we can just kind of come together. Last year, so I didn't even know we did this until I think last year, and the time constraint was so tight that I just had to write it without, Greg looked at it, but other than that, we based it off the prior year and kind of move forward. I'd love it to be a little bit more of a value add to the residents. Review of the meeting minutes from our last meeting, which was 1/14/2025. So we have them in front of us. Floor is open for any updates or changes.
I'll move adoption of the minutes.
I do need a second on that.
Second.
Any further comments?
They
Tommy,
said
how do you vote?
25.
Yes.
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 Meeting minutes are approved.
I could have swore she said 2025.
Thank you. We do have the opportunity for any of our town committees to provide us with any reports that they might have. I don't see, is there anyone on Zoom that would like to share a report? Hearing none. We have no old business, no new business. Plan for our next meeting. We have, Ashley, is there anything in the pipeline that you are aware of? All right. So for our next meeting, which is February 11th, we have a couple of options. We could schedule a joint meeting with the select board. We could not have a meeting at all. We could have just work on, one of the things I am hesitant to do is for us during this period that we're taking public comment for changes that we've already proposed, I do hesitate for us to get too embedded in the future, the next round, because it starts to get really confusing. And we don't know that the residents have approved the changes that we are recommending. So I would argue that maybe that's not a great use of our time in the middle of winter to kind of push it forward. But if you guys want to do that,
Why don't we, I like the idea of meeting with these guys and trying to, you know, make sure we're on the same page.
Oh yeah, please come up to the microphone,
We got two
sir.
of them here.
We like that idea too. Let's get together on the 11th. It'll at least be me and Dan. And so what we can say,
Bring friends.
huh? What was that?
So you can bring your friends.
We'll try to bring our friends.
You should invite town manager as well.
Yeah, so we're going to talk to the town manager about, and we'll also talk to him about potentially on the lawyer piece, if that's something that can happen. Because that does sound like a really good way to just hash it out, right? Figure it out.
And
So
I think
yeah,
that also sets us up to do the next step. You know, so we can share with you, because we have started working on the next section, which now we're just going according to the way the ordinance reads. So we're looking at performance standards.
Yep.
So that's, you know, obviously that's, I think, a piece of this that your input as a select board, as kind of the overseers of the town, it's vitally important.
Yep.
Because if there's gaps in performance standards now, if people are coming to you and saying, how is it possible that this hideous building could get built? That's stuff that we could take into consideration as part of the performance standards. I will say that a former board chair would always say at this point in time, this is the opportunity for us to maybe consider things like design standards. You will not hear this particular board chair suggest design standards, but if that's something that people want, we're open to talking about it. I know for me, it's not, as a fairly independent person, I have a really hard time with things like someone telling me what color I could paint my house.
That was a real conversation.
Yeah. We had
Setting
lots of
design
those.
standards
Yeah.
for town of Hollis where houses had to be a certain color.
so do you want to interrupt? Do you want to talk about logistics for the 11th in terms of like what we do? Do you want to kind of just do it the way we did last time in just, what was that, November? I forget.
That was a public, so we have to notice the public, either of us have a meeting, any meeting, we have to notice the public.
Yeah.
So it'd be open to the public, and we
It's-
can do it at our time, but we don't have to necessarily lead the meeting if you guys want to.
No, I think we do it the way, we workshop it the way we did before. It doesn't have to be televised. We can put all this together and we'll just have a good hash it out, figure it out discussion about things, and hopefully we can get as many people, public as well as other interested parties, stakeholders, if you will, in here. And let's because time is of the essence, so let's get it done. Sound good?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Let's figure it out. All right.
Say something, sir?
Are we doing the same thing that we did last time over in the other room?
No, so I think that, at least from my perspective, it would be a little bit more formal in terms of an agenda, where we are gonna walk through the proposed, I assume we're gonna do the proposed changes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. More, definitely more formal. Yeah. The last
So,
time was,
we will just walk through the ordinance changes,
Yeah.
starting with section 1 and going through section 2.
what I meant last time, I meant like the structure of it, not so much the content. Obviously, the content, we've moved past that. We are a different town.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, appreciate that, appreciate your partnership as well. And we definitely appreciate you guys being here. I know that coming out to an additional town meeting is not always what we want to be doing, but I guess at least it's not July and we're doing it.
Historically, has the planning board always done that and I just missed this?
Didn't done what?
Have meetings with the select board to make sure they're okay with what we're presenting?
I think the answer is no, but I think the reason for it is maybe so that they don't axe our stuff. went into.
I was just saying, like, I've been on the plane for 6
You've been
years.
here a long time. Yeah.
And I've just never, I don't ever remember when previous boards, I don't ever remember going, again, maybe I just missed it. I just don't ever remember asking.
We've never done it.
Okay, all right. I just didn't know. It just didn't seem, like I said, I just don't remember having the same conversation every, June.
And then I guess one of the things that I would say is that it does, oftentimes we are surprised with proposals, with ordinance changes that the select board proposes at the last minute that are zoning ordinance related and that we don't see until a week before the select board votes on them. So this is also an opportunity for the select board, if they're thinking of things that we didn't address in our plans, that's an opportunity for us to have a more open discussion about those types of things too, so that we aren't, I think it's been a number of elections that we've been kind of surprised by some proposed changes or not changes, so to speak. So yeah, so we're looking forward to having that conversation early, just like you guys are looking forward to not being surprised by something that we put in front.
For this next meeting, is there any way we could just maybe let the comments about the past and the previous way things were happening and everything, can we let that all go now?
You're still doing the same thing that you guys were doing before. You're giving us permission to put stuff on ordinance when that never used to happen in this town. The
Okay.
planning board never went to the select board and said, here, let me present you all this stuff, so you guys can tell us whether we can put it on the.
We guys are not doing anything.
What's that?
We guys are not doing anything. Are you talking?
You're doing it right now. We're having a meeting to show you what we want to put on the ballot.
Yeah.
You allow us to put on the ballot. That never happened in the history of Hollis before the two of us were here, and now we have all these other people that are joining us. So before the previous chair left,
I don't agree with that. I think what we're trying to do is work together as a town to get what's best for the town. And the fact of we're asking your permission, or you're not giving our permission, let's forget about all that stuff, and let's have our joint meetings and public comments and things, and improve the town.
It's just about communication.
Yeah, that's not how I'm looking at it. I'm not thinking like I'm giving you permission to do things. I'm just thank you for saying that. That's exactly how I'm feeling about it. It's not. I'm not trying to do anything like anybody else has done before. Really, I'm just communicating, listening. It's true.
we'll be there on the 11th.
Do we want to keep our normal, I mean, I know many of us on this board, we do have other responsibilities, and we were asked to discuss as a group the idea of changing our meeting times, and a number of us determined that an earlier start time wouldn't work for most of this board. That the later start time, that I know for me, look, I've struggled to get a child to recreational basketball tonight, and then how's he going to get picked up? And given the time frame, I definitely wouldn't have been able to do it if we started an hour earlier. But given that we are going to have guests, that the select board is taking their time to come to our, during our time, would we consider an earlier start time, or could we consider for one meeting?
I can make it work if you have to do 6 o'clock instead of 7.
I can too.
I can make it.
And it's not for a public hearing, so it's not like we change the time for a public hearing. It hasn't been noted, or, posted.
And it will be posted.
Right, I see.
So we can, so is that, do you guys, is that something that, I know that that's something that's under discussion with the select board.
I'm very flexible.
You looked very flexible and spry when you jumped up to let us know that. Mike, is that something that do you think that the rest of the select board would rather do a 6 o'clock start time? Okay, we'll do that then. So let's make sure that we are very clear with, in all of our notices, and same, because you have to notice it as well. So we are going to do a 6 o'clock start time on our February 11th meeting only. That's, Ashley, that works for you? Okay, great. I don't know about Greg, but
Daniel, okay with that?
we'll get his input. Yes, I hope so. So that being said, that is the last item on the agenda. Does anyone have anything that they would like to discuss? I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
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 Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Mike, do you have a copy of these? I don't know if I got emailed to you. That's the SMPTC Pelaya email for all the stuff that they sent over.